Ronald Simms, how are you? I've done a bit of research on you, obviously, before I came on, but the first thing I wanted to do was basically introduce you as a friend of mine in boxing. The boxing family is global, and I first met you in Germany. But what stood out the most about you when I spoke to you was one, your humility in the sport as a champion, right? Representing your country. I looked at when you started the box and it blew my mind. I couldn't believe that you made a national team. It was the Air Corps, was it? Am I mistaken? It was the Air Corps that you first started the box?
I started in the US Air Force, yes. I started at the age of 21.
When I read that, that blew my mind, to think that you could make the national team from the time you started. It was 1998, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yes, but I started in 1995.
Oh, you started the box in 1995.
In 1995, and then I made the national team in like 98, 99. It took a while, but another thing is that I've always been interested in boxing since I was 7 years old. So I didn't get a chance to really get into it until I joined the military. So when I got that opportunity, I went for it.
You just jumped on it. Because
yes, sir.
Had you any members of your family serving? Were they an influence in your decision to go to the Air Force?
Well, my father, he's retired military, and I have a younger brother also. My grandfather and uncle, they are also military men.
All right, okay. So it's in the family.
Yes.
You were born in Washington.
No, actually, I was born in Phoenix, Arizona, but I was raised in Washington, D.C., but I was born in Phoenix because my father was stationed at Luke Air Force Base in Phoenix, Arizona. And that's where he met my mother, and they got married there and had me as a child. Then we went to Germany. We went all over the place because we followed him as he was in the military.
But again, were both your mama and your papa sport orientated? Did they participate in sport? Were they crazy about sport?
Well, my father said that he did boxing at a younger age, but what encouraged me to box is, I believe it was in 1970. We were stationed in Ramstein, Germany, and they had this big ruckus about a huge fight, the fight of the century. It was Muhammad Ali and Joe Frazier, and Muhammad Ali was so flamboyant, and I happened to see it on television. It just captured me. It just took me. Oh, I have to see this, and I was excited about the fight. But unfortunately, I was young at that time. I was 7, and when they boxed, I had fell asleep, and I didn't get to watch it.
Oh, that's a bummer.
And Ali ended up losing.
Well, there you go. There you go. I'll tell you, they had a great 3 matches. They had 3 great matches.
Awesome.
Oh, so intense. So you're in the Air Force. You then, am I correct in saying you lied about your amateur record?
Yes. What happened is I went to the base gym, and they were playing. We playing basketball, and I happened to see this calendar, this poster calendar on the wall, and it had Air Force sports. It had basketball, all types of Olympic sports, and I saw boxing. I was like, oh my God, there's boxing. So I went to the attendant. I said, hey, how can I try out for this boxing team? He said, oh, they have an application, Air Force Form 303. Fill this out and bring it back, and we'll send it to headquarters. So I was filling it out, and I was like, if I say I don't have any bouts, they would not accept me. So I put on that I had 7 bouts with 7 knockouts. I did not know that there was no such thing as knockouts in the amateurs. But I was accepted, and I took advantage of it, and I ended up winning the Air Force title in my first outing.
So that's incredible. That's incredible. And so you said it took a period of time to make the national team, right? Now people are generally trying to make that national team. I know boxing's not legal. Well, in this country, boxing's not legal until you're 11 years of age, right? But kids come in younger. They don't really spar. They tip-tap and they play and stuff like that.
Yes.
But most kids have been in the gym since they're probably 8, 9, 10, 11 years of age, sometimes a little bit younger. And they're all trying to make that national team. And they've been doing that for over a decade. And then you take the sport to first competition, win the Air Force Championship. And then how did you get into the national team? When did you get into it?
Well, in the United States, they had a system, whereas we had what we call local boxing communities, LBCs. There were like 56 of them in the United States. Okay, and then they break the LBCs. Certain LBCs, they'll compete in each other in which they called regions. They broke them in regions. They broke the regions up in the United States. Whereas, someone from Maryland, D.C., and Virginia, they were combined as one region. Mm-hmm. Texas is so large that was a region in its own. But then they also had each military automatically had a spot on the national championships. I guess back in the days, being patriotic and all. They say, okay, we're going to afford each military branch a part in participation to compete in the nationals. So the Army, Air Force, Navy, and Marines all had 4 teams to make the nationals. Then when you go to the nationals, you're boxing against the top guys in the country, and that's how I got there.
Okay. That's an incredible story. But you're saying that, but it's the time period that blows my mind, because when you think of the population in the USA, 360 million, near 400 million, I don't know, somewhere floating around there. And you're a fighting nation. So, it's one of your top sports. So the competition, must have been off the Richter. You're talking about the best in country.
Yes, and you're correct there. But I'm so lucky because I got to compete against the top guys. My fifth bout, that was my first loss. I boxed against a guy that had 185 bouts, and he was a national champion, and he had beaten Riddick Bowe a couple of months before he boxed me. He moved down to middleweight. He was light heavyweight. He moved to middleweight, but a couple of months before he boxed me, he had beat Riddick Bowe, and Riddick Bowe ended up becoming the heavyweight champion of the world. But the Army program in the United States at that time was super strong. If you can remember, in 1988, I believe it was Seoul, Korea, the U.S. won, I think maybe 3 or 4 gold medals, and all of the individuals were from the Army. You have Ray Mercer, you have Andrew Maynard, you have Kennedy McKinney. Wow. They won the gold. They won the gold for the U.S., but all 3 of them were in the Army, and I had to compete against their team, and they had a very. I think at that time, every weight class they had the number 1 boxer, or they had number 1, number 2, and sometimes number 3 on their team, ranked in the nation on the Army team. That's how dominant they were. And I was lucky to be able to go to their training camps and train for them. You know, I got beat up. I mean, as a matter of fact, I remember one time at Fort Huachuca, I had to spar against, I don't know if you ever heard of Anthony Hembrick. He was supposed to win the gold medal and so, but he ended up missing the bus.
Wow.
and didn't yeah, he missed the bus and didn't get to compete. And but he was an excellent boxer. And I remember I had to spar against him, and all the coaches are telling this guy what to do to me. And I'm like, I am nobody. This guy is number one in the world, and they're all telling. But I got all my learning from. I was very observant. And I wanted to take in all that I can take. You know, so. You know, I never thought I was going to be a coach, though. I just wanted to be my goal was to be number one in the country. And I have a story about that because one thing I tell my athletes now, set your goals high, because my goal was to be number one in the country. And when I reached that goal, I was so happy and I was satisfied. And it was in 1995. For a long time, I was number 2. I dropped to number 3, but I never reached number 1. But in 95, I reached number 1, and I was happy. I was like, okay, now I can quit. But my coach tells me, no, the Olympics are coming up. And I told my coach, I said, no, this is not what I did it for.
What about
I just
it?
want
Yeah.
to be number 1. So you must set your goals high, because once you achieve your goals, you become satisfied.
Oh, you had to beat Dana. Was it Rucker?
Dana Rucker.
Shane Swartz.
Shane Swartz. That was a tough one.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And you beat both of them to qualify for an Olympic alternate, was it? Well, that was the Pan American.
Yes.
Was it?
No, Pan American Games. Yes.
Pan American Games.
That's when I became number 1. The Pan American Games. That's when I went to Argentina with the team. I was number 1 at that time. And we had a great team with Antonio Tarver, David Reed, who ended up winning the gold medal in the '96 Olympics.
And then you had Floyd Mayweather Jr. No?
Floyd did not make that. He didn't make it number 1 at that time.
Okay.
He came later and ended up becoming number 1. But at that time, he was not number 1.
But you know, in beating those individuals in the Pan American Games, then you met Ariel Hernandez.
Oh, yeah, Ariel Hernandez.
And I seen a photograph, and you were in pain, brother. When I look at that photograph, you were in pain. He must have hit you with a body shot, did he?
He hit me dead in the solar plexus, and I was paralyzed. For like 8 seconds, I was paralyzed. I mean, my air would not release and my air would not come in. I could not exhale and I could not inhale. And I felt like I was going to die because I had no control of my body. But then after 8 seconds passed, I was fine. So, but they had stopped the bout. And after that bout, I wanted to get them again. I wanted some more, because I was like, because, you know, Cuba, they have this, this mystique. Everybody, oh, Cuba is this, Cuba is that. So when I was boxing him, I was like, oh, this guy is not, he's not all this. But he had hit me from a distance to the head, and the referee gave me an 8 count. But I was like, I'm okay, no problem. So I decided in my mind, okay, the referee is going to say box, and I'm going to attack him. So when the referee said box, I attacked him, and he came with a looping punch, like a uppercut looping punch. As I was proceeding forward, it hit me dead in the solar plexus and paralyzed me.
Wow.
And that was the end of that bout.
Isn't it funny? It's kind of characteristic of the Cuban team, because Guillermo Rigondeaux, that's his signature shot. It's the left hand to the body, or the backhand, the right hand to the body. isn't it? No, sorry, the left-handed buddy. He's a southpaw. The
Yeah,
left
he's up, but they call it.
liver shot.
They call it, yeah, okay, but they call it for the start. They call it like a bolo. They call it a bolo punch because he loops it up and bring it under. It's what they call a bolo.
There's a couple of names we call it here. The Russian is one of them because it was Russian that they would have seen here. I'm Phil Sutcliffe, my old coach. He would say that's called the Russian, that shot. But we all have different names. Who cares? It hurt you.
Yes.
That's all that you know.
Exactly.
And it stopped you from progressing, but you got a bronze medal, right?
Yeah, I ended up getting a bronze medal. Yes, yes.
That's phenomenal. Again, I can't believe the period of time that you boxed, you achieved national success to become the #1, to go to the Pan American Games, to get a bronze medal. And then did you actually, you must have had to travel to the Olympics, or were you sitting in the stands for most of it?
No, we did not get to travel. As a matter of fact, I was, like I said, I was on the board of directors, and I was trying to convince the members of the board that the alternates need to go to the Olympics. Okay, we have been with the national team through the whole training period, and the alternate needs to go, and the reason they need to go is because it will convince many of us to stay for another 4 years.
Sure.
I was too old because 34 would have been, I would have been past 34. But we had a lot of young people like a Gerald Tucker, like a Zab Judah. They were alternates also. So I was trying to convince them that, hey, you need to have the alternates go because they're going to see what the Olympics are about, and they're going to want to be the #1 person, because #2 was not too pleasant.
No, it never is.
But if you get to see #1 do things, it inspires you to say, hey, I got to come back and do this. But unfortunately, the board, they did not listen to me, and they did not allow the alternates to attend that '96 Olympic Games. So so after that, that's when I started coaching in '97.
Hold on, though. Let me pull you back. So you quit amateur boxing after 1996, and you went pro for a while, 2 years. Is that correct?
Well, actually, I did not immediately go pro. I started coaching. I was never going to go pro. But I came about some hard times.
Sure.
And I remember in like 1993, this coach in Virginia was trying to get me to turn professional, and I was like, no. Then he had said to me, he said, if you had to make money some type of way, what would you do? You know, so I was like, so when I came through a hard time, I needed some money. So I was like, okay, I remember him telling me this. So I'm gonna go pro and make some money. So that's why I went pro.
And you boxed pro for 2 years, and you had an 11-0 record.
Yes, I had an 11-0 record with 8 knockouts.
8 knockouts.
And professional was not what I thought it was, what I thought it would be. I thought professional is like the best wants to fight the best. It is nothing like that. As a matter of fact, it was very difficult for me to get bouts.
Why?
Because I had such an extensive amateur background, and when you start out, when you turn professional, they look at you as starting all over again, especially if you haven't won like a gold medal in the Olympics.
Yeah.
So they want to start you. They want to start you at a low level. But then the opponents, the coaches, and the manager, they look at you and they do research on you, and they say no. They'll call people and say, hey, did you know this guy? Oh, no, you don't want to fight him. He's a pro. He's a pro already. So it was very difficult on getting bouts. And I tell you, the hardest thing as a boxer to do is to train and train and train and not get bouts. That's the hardest thing to do.
Yeah.
And that's the situation that I was in. I ended up getting 11 bouts. But at one point I think I had 3 bouts in like 21 days at one point. And that was good.
Wow. Yeah. Then you left. At least you had the intelligence to leave, but you weren't leaving with no education. You have a business degree, business and management degree, correct?
Yes, that was later. That was later on. After yeah, I ended up getting a business management degree, but this was just maybe a couple of years ago.
A couple of years ago. And you always seem like the kind of guy that would, you know, if you need to acquire knowledge, you do whatever it takes to get that knowledge, so it helps you, you know, it makes your day easier, let's just say. You're the kind of fella that would have went and got yourself, because I know you're involved now, you're working with InSport, Institute of Sport, right? And
yes,
you're the chief coach, so there's a lot of management involved in that.
Yes.
There's a lot of management. And was the business degree influenced by working now for yourself as a business, or how did that come about?
Yes. Well, my goal right now is to have my own business, and it has to do with boxing, of course. I want to have my own boxing gym, but I want it to be more than just a boxing gym. I kind of have like a holistic champion type of mind, whereas I like to share, especially with the young kids, to become number one, become champions in life, be a champion citizen of the world. Okay, do the right thing. Okay, and also I am the type of person like, hey, we all make mistakes. Okay, but when you make a mistake, do not lie and say I did not do it or whatever. Stand up to it. Be a man. Okay. Yes, I did. I apologize. I made a mistake, and you learn from your mistakes, and you go on to be greater. And so that's something that I do with these young kids here. And I always tell them. I tell them the story about myself. It's not really a true story, but I tell them about the time my mother was upstairs in her bed, relaxing. And I asked her, I said, Mom, can I have some cookies? She said, no. So I go downstairs in the kitchen and I climb up the cabinet and I grab the cookie jar, and the cookie jar falls and breaks. And immediately I start crying because she's going to kill me.
You're going to get an ass whooping. Yeah, for sure.
Yes.
You know, we grew up in that era. Well, there's not much between us. I think you were born in 1963. I'm 68. There's 5 years between us, a generation between us. But there were the same home values from your parents in terms of corporal punishment. If you stepped out of line, you knew what was coming.
Oh yeah.
You knew
no doubt.
Yes. So it's a whole different philosophy, and I'm forever grateful I came from that background, and I know as it influences how I interact with people today. You know, I don't mean I go around slapping them, but I mean if
exactly respect.
We were taught respect,
yes.
And if you didn't respect, you are humbled.
Exactly.
You are humbled. And so you got
yes, sir.
And so we got those old school values where you still hold the door for a lady, blah, 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 bling, bling, bling.
Exactly. Yes.
Old school,
yes.
just old school values.
Yes.
But having said that, I'm impressed with this generation that's come through now, Ronald, and because they have more choices than we have, but they're equally as motivated and inspired. But they're just built different than we are mentally. We were kind of a very practical generation. If you want something, go out and get it, son. You're gonna have to put the footwork in. You're not gonna get it sitting on the couch. Get off the couch and do a day's work. You know, be constructive with your day. You know, so
Exactly.
But that doesn't make this generation any better or worse. Just a whole different social kind of makeup. I wanted to ask you, so
Yes.
you're with Inspire Institute of Sport, and you're in the region of Ballari. Is it Ballari? Ballari?
Bellary, Bellary.
Okay. And
Yes.
and you're in India. That's in
Yes.
India. Okay.
Yes.
I remember having I've said this to you before, a 5-hour car ride from New Delhi to the Olympic Village. And I will never forget that my whole life, ever. It was so bad between holy cows walking on into the middle of the street to a 53-seater coach overtaking us at nearly 90 miles an hour. The back of it was tail wobbling. He missed his turn. He hits the brakes, drives across a 5-lane carriageway, motorway, blocks the traffic, and then reverses right back a quarter of a mile up the road to the turn that he'd missed. Just sitting there going, oh, I'm dead. I finished that journey for 4 hours with a bump in front of my face until I fell asleep in the back of the car. And I swore on the way back, Ronald, I was getting the train. I said, I'm getting the goddamn train. I don't care. And I took 2 sleeping pills on the way back. Gone. I said, if I'm dead, I won't know. I'm sleeping. So, yeah, it was horrific.
Yeah, that's normal. That's normal here in India.
Yeah. I just, how are you managing? That was the thing I was going to say. You've been with this Inspire. You've been coaching for how long now, Ronald?
I started coaching in 1997, so I've been coaching for quite some time now.
14 years. And, okay.
Yes. So I'm here. I'm here in Bellary. I've been here since 2016, and I think we're making some progress. Three of our boxers from the company I work for, they qualified in Jordan Amman. So we got 3 of them, and I'm looking for 2 more to qualify in the next. So hopefully we'll have five Olympians coming up in this 2021.
2021. That's phenomenal.
Yes, just from our company.
And when you think of where India has come from as a nation, a boxing nation, if you'd have said to somebody India 10 years ago, you know, like even 5 years ago they were starting to come onto the scene, but 10 years ago, as a boxing nation, people would have said, who? And they've just, like China, they've just come out of the ground.
Oh, yeah. Yes.
They're phenomenal. They have the population. They have the population.
Yeah, exactly. They have the population. Yes, just have to get the technique and I think India, what they have brought in some international coaches. You know, we have Santiago and we have Rafael from Italy. Rafael is with the girls and Santiago is with the men. And so I'm just fortunate to, you know, be around them and have some of my athletes make it, you know, to the national team. You know,
I've seen both of those guys in many competitions, Santiago and Rafael. I've met them in many competitions with the Indian team, and the Indian team are so easy to deal with in terms of, because I work as an official, right, as an official in boxing. They just. They're just so, I've never met an Indian on contact that doesn't smile, or at least if you encourage a smile, they'll smile with you. they're just it's such a cultural thing for Indians. They have that really, there's a really nice way about their personality, or the you know, the team themselves. Every time the Indian team comes in the house, it's like they're so easy to manage. You know, they're such nice people, really nice people.
Yes.
I know there are different cultures and there's different cultural habits, but as a nation, the Indians are so easy to work with, and they're just beautiful people on contact. And you're well settled into the Indian way of life.
Yes. Well, where I am, I'm at an institute. So we are where I live. It does not look like India, because as a matter of fact, I just went over to Mr. Jindo's. They invited the staff over to their house the day before yesterday, and they told us how this place became. And Mr. Jindo, he wanted to build a steel plant. So he talked to his brother. His brother told him, "Hey, just go out and pitch a tent, and build your steel plant." So he had got married, and he brought his wife with him, and he pitched a tent, and he had his crew, a 7-man crew, and his wife went along with him, and she says, "Okay, the place was like deserted. It was like just rocks." So she wanted trees everywhere. So she says for every ton of steel that they make, she wants a tree planted. So they've been here since, I believe, 1996. 1996, and they planted many trees. So when you ride down the street, you have shade. You have shade, and this place is anybody that, okay. When I first came here, I said that this is paradise.
Wow.
This is paradise because it's away from any distractions. Okay, we have top facilities. Everything is built from ground up, and I mean, we have hills that we can run. We have a track, a 400-meter track. We have a sports science building. We have a cafeteria. We have an admin building. We have a hostel where the kids live. We have the flats where the staff live, and we're all gated. We're gated in, whereas you cannot just walk into our community. You have to be invited in. So, and I think that's a good thing for us now, because being that this coronavirus is going on, everybody here is safe.
Yeah.
And we're not allowing anybody from the outside to come in. If you come in, you have to get quarantined. As a matter of fact, when I left Jordan, I had to stay in Bangalore. I just got back. I was in Bangalore for 1 month quarantine.
Wow.
Before I was able to come back here.
Wow.
And then I had to go to the hospital, and they had to, go through their process before I can come back on this installation, because nobody on here has the coronavirus, and they don't want to let it in.
Yeah, we're on lockdown here at the moment, so it's
we are too.
We're on lockdown, but I mean, lockdown means so many different things, Ronald, in so many different places. We can go out to exercise. We can go outside for exercise, and we can go to the store. You fill your car with gasoline. Just all essential services are operating at the moment. But it's a weird situation, because different countries are doing it different ways. In Scandinavia, people are actually circulating, but they haven't closed anything down, but they're still circulating, but they're using face masks, gloves, blah, blah, blah. But they've kept the older population, they've encouraged them to stay indoors, right? And everybody thinks that's crazy, but then they don't have a very high rate of the corona at the moment, but I'm sure cases are growing as we speak. And then you've got other versions of it which are extreme, where was it Putin that said in Russia, it's either 5 weeks in quarantine or 5 years in prison. Which one do you want? And so people are staying indoors. Yeah, I think, I could be wrong, I think. And then China just absolutely locked down everything. That was it, just locked it down. But we live in an authoritarian society. And then I only seen today in where people are protesting about being isolated, and they want to get back and kick off again and get going. We all do. Nobody knows what the right or way wrong is. It just, everybody's waiting around to see. Like China now have took some of the restrictions off, and people are now circulating. All right, and we're all looking at them to see if there's a rebound, see if it comes back.
Yes, and second wave. Yes.
Yeah, and that seems to be indicative. You did mention something to me before. Ali was always one of your favorite fighters, but Joe Louis was the man for you. Yeah.
Exactly. Wow. How did you know that?
I done a bit of homework before I called.
I think his technical skills were on point. I think his balance, his defense, and everything was tight. He had his hook was like a 6-inch hook. It was, when I say 6 inches, I mean 6 inches means, okay, it does not mean from here to here, but 6 inches mean basically from here to here.
Yeah.
It was tight, you know, and when it landed, it was very powerful. I think his technique and the way that he carried himself, I think he carried himself as a distinguished gentleman.
Yeah.
And, from what I see, and I think that's what attracts me to a Joe Louis type of individual.
But he represented the then black community of America, Joe Louis, the brown bomber.
Yes.
Right. Now, he was basically repairing the damage for one of the greatest that's ever lived before him, Jack Johnson. I read his book, the Joe Louis book, and his trainer had said to him, wherever Jack was as a person, we're the opposite. You'll always be stone-faced, deadpan. That's what they used to call him, deadpan Joe. You're going to be deadpan. You're not going to be outspoken. You're not going to be, how could I say, one of these rebels. You're going to be run of the mill, you know.
Exactly.
And that was his whole persona. But when I think of Jack Johnson, he was fearless at a time in African American history.
Exactly.
You know, he was fearless. Like, he had so much as a man.
Yes, he was a man's man.
Yeah, in many ways. But he didn't care what, like, the pressures then on the black community were, you know, from outside, you know, like racial tension, etc., etc.
Yeah.
Well, he flaunted it. He didn't care.
He did.
He just didn't care.
Yeah, I think the little documentary they did called "Unforgivable Blackness," that was a proper title to give that documentary.
The Jack. Well, he was one of the forced to parry, use his hands to parry and block, put them up, and he learned that apparently from the circus. He wasn't in the circus. He was in prison with a guy from the circus. And the guy from the circus used arms to trick him or do, I don't know what it was, I think it was magic stuff. And something clicked in Joe's head, the feint or the movement of hand, so I can get my next shot off. And so, historically, you know, when people look at Floyd Mayweather and they look at that style of boxing, they think that that hasn't been a repetitive cycle in boxing through history. And when you think of block, shoulder taps or block,
Sure.
and then counters,
Yeah.
Jack Johnson. Let's go back to Jack Johnson. Let's talk about Jack Johnson.
Yes. Exactly. Yes.
You know, and he was a century before. You know, thereabouts. Anyway, getting back to you. How long are you going to stay in India, Ronald?
I really don't know right now. My contract here ends in December, but we'll see how it goes. Being that the Olympics are now in 2021, and you know, I have, you know, one guy, he ended up getting the silver medal in the qualifier because he ended up getting a cut, and we decided that, okay, we don't want the cut to get better. We don't want to get worse, so he's already qualified, so we won't box in the finals because we don't want it to get cut any worse. We wanted to get the gold medal, but the first thing we wanted to do was qualify, and we got the qualification, and we didn't want the cut to get any worse. So we said, hey, we're qualified. We'll be satisfied right now. Now we're going to go back, and I've already did an assessment. So we're gonna this corona came, so we're on hold a little bit, but we have things that we have to improve. So we're gonna work on that. We're gonna work on these, improving these things, and this time has given us some time to improve ourselves. So we take it with a grain of salt, and we're gonna use that time to get better so that we can get the gold medal in the Olympics. So I will have to see what the management decides to do, if they want to offer me an extension, or
Sure.
they may say, hey, thank you for your services. And either way, I would be okay, because I definitely have to get my master's degree. I'm going to go back to school and get my master's degree, and right now I'm not able to do that because I'm really into this program here.
Sure. And I understand why. You know, you want to see it to the end. You want to see it to its, you know, well, closure. You want to see it to its closure.
Exactly.
You know? And then you've invested interest in it. You've worked with those kids for a number of years, and so
Exactly.
now
Yes,
qualified
yes.
for the Olympics, 3 of your fighters. That's phenomenal. So that's great work. Well done. Well done. I know what that feeling's like. I know what the feeling's like to work with somebody from nothing and make, you know, go somewhere and they become something. Well, they were something before they got there, but you know, they become champions.
Yes.
And it's such a nice feeling to be
Yeah.
a part of it. Just a small chapter in a kid's life or something like that.
For me, growth is the most beautiful thing. Growth. You know, when you have a child that can't crawl, then you see them crawl, then you see them walk, then you see them run. It's like, it's amazing. Growth is amazing, and this is one thing that I see, and it's just inspiring, and just makes you feel good when you see growth and success from anyone. That's just the type of person I am. When I see success, when I see someone that's doing good, it brings me joy to my heart.